Well, happy afternoon and happy Friday before spring break. Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Gonzalez. I have the honor of supporting San Diego City College with the new and exciting Title III HSI STEM grant. Today we'll be hearing about the S building renovations and the upgrades that have been proposed as part of this grant. I'll pass it on to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Adan Sanchez, who's here, and then to Dr. Leticia Lopez.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hopefully you can hear me well. My headphones just gave out. They're like, no more. It's Friday. They ran out of battery. So I'll try to project a little bit as I'm using the computer's audio. Yeah, I'm currently serving as the acting dean of student affairs at San Diego City College, and I had the opportunity to help out with the campus-wide collaboration on writing this grant. So I'm very excited to be here and to have Dr. Gonzalez here in terms of leading the project. Do you want to just do the intro right now? Okay, thank you.
And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I know I sent a message out last Friday to the chairs to communicate this meeting to everyone in their respective departments. And I sent a reminder yesterday. So I'm glad to see a few of you here on the cusp of spring break. So glad you can make it. And glad to be here in the capacity now moving forward as your dean, no longer acting, right? So I love the energy, I love the ideas, enthusiasm, and really coming in at this time is very, very exciting because Title III STEM grants really afford us a lot of opportunities for innovation. So I'm looking forward to joining you all in this next chapter, the next 5 years.
Congratulations, Dr. Leticia Lopez. They are lucky to have you. And I know, Dr. Sanchez, you were extremely humble because I keep telling people that you had to get an A++ on this grant to be awarded. It was an extremely competitive application process. I think one of the most competitive that I've seen. Any campus who was awarded, I think it's a testament to just a very well put together grant, but also that it is student-based, that it's a direct response to the needs of students and faculty, and that it's very well laid out so that the impact will be made in the next 5 years. And so I just want to highlight that because it's no easy task. So today we want to give you an update on the S building renovations that were proposed as part of this grant. We will, Adan, Dr. Sanchez will be giving us just a brief update, reminding us of what went into the development of this grant, what needs were identified by this grant, and thus the renovations that were proposed. I'll share a little bit about the vision behind the proposed upgrades and a little bit about the staffing and long-term sustainability plan for these efforts. And we'll conclude with an invitation to be part of our HSI task force. I turn it to you, Adan.
Thank you, Liz. All right, so yeah, so this was quite the project, and I mean, I'm just the representative of this group of folks. I mean, we had faculty, classified professionals, students, alumni who were part of the conversations, you know, almost soon after I started my job at San Diego City College, which was right after the pandemic started, when we started meeting virtually, you know, and so that started, I think, May of 2020. And it was quite, you know, a 9-month process because, or a little bit more, because we submitted it in June of 2021, right? So it's actually, yeah, a year process by the time we started meeting. And it was a great opportunity for us to really look at first the student data, looking at where we were in terms of the Latino, Latina, Latinx Chicana, Chicano, Chicanx student population in relation to STEM. So we really were able to connect with our institutional research folks to help us with that. And then being able to get voices from faculty, students, alumni, classified professionals, because we did transition the conversation of moving forward with a Title V grant. And then because we saw the opportunity and the need to switch to a Title III grant that focused not just on the HSI components as a Hispanic Civil institution, but that it included the STEM. So it was a combination of what was the conversations before with the Title V work that was that was taking place even before I arrived, and how can we switch that? And so it was summer of 2020 was really intensive in meeting weekly with these folks. Dr. Heather McGray, thank you for being here, participating in some of those meetings and conversations. She was critical in recruiting some other folks as well on the faculty side. And then in the fall semester of 2020, we continued the meetings, not on a weekly basis because everyone was back on working on the regular jobs. And then it led that fall semester and the following spring semester to really go around the different stakeholder groups at City College to get some feedback, get some information. So we had the opportunity to go to College Council multiple times, go to Academic Senate, Classified Senate, to really get some feedback on how to do this. We were able to get some student surveys, faculty information as well, to really try to capture the voices of a lot of folks here at City College. So it did not feel like it was a surprise, right? And so now, leading to that was working with a consultant as well. And we were submitted in June of 2021, and we were very, very happy that we were able to get it. And then just the quality of work that we put together in terms of the care for our students and their experience in the STEM fields. So that's a little bit of what I wanted to share. I don't know if there's anything more specific that maybe someone wants to ask about the process, or Liz, if you have another questions that we want to focus on.
No, yeah, Adan, I think that gives people an idea of all that went into the development of this grant. Again, leveraging what had been done with the Title V HSI grant, and now expanding into the STEM and addressing not only this national need for supporting Latino and low-income students in STEM, but also addressing the particular needs that students on our campus have, right? And creating a proposal that is unique to what they were asking. And so on this slide, we do have some of those narratives. These are just 3 of them, but you can see here that students asked for a space. They said, we want a space for STEM majors to be able to study and ask questions, a place where they can call their own. Students also, as you all well know, right, because you interact with students on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of fear around the 4 or 6 years from now, am I going to have a job to pay for the debt that I'm in? How am I going to find a job that has a sustainable wage that's going to allow me to support myself and my family? And so here, what I find interesting here, the student in the middle expressing that fear and then saying, if only you could please provide, even if it's just information about internships and how it works. And this is a first-generation student, right, who's saying, can you just give me a little something, just the information? And it reminds me that first-generation students oftentimes just ask for the least, right, the least that they can get. And I think what City wants to do is give them the excellence. No, we're not just going to give you information about internships. We're going to invest deeply in staffing to walk you through that internship exploration process, connect you to workplaces, connect you to undergraduate research opportunities, and walk that path with you. So not just give them information, but do in-depth support for this. And students wanting hands-on projects, places where they can engage and learn in interactive ways. I do want to say also that this is part of the larger HSI Title III grant. So it is a very comprehensive grant that has a lot of moving parts and that involves institutional-wide stakeholders. It is $1 million every year for the next 5 years. We are currently in year 1, 6 months in. Every year starts October 1st and ending with September. And so the objectives of the 5-year grant are as follow. 1, we want to increase success in particular STEM courses. We want to increase the number of certificates and associate's degrees in STEM. And we also want to increase STEM transfer, as well as building students' sense of belonging on campus. This is just a picture to show you of all the activities that are going to be going on. And today we will not focus on all of the activities. We want to pay particular attention to when students start with our campus. So again, we're going to be supporting students from them even before they step foot on City College. We will invite them to a STEM Summer Bridge program. We will be working with faculty to redesign specific STEM courses to be more culturally responsive. We will offer integrated intentional student support as well. And that's partly what we'll talk about today, as well as a STEM center and a makerspace. So those are the 2 areas that we'll cover today. But just know that this is part of a much, much larger, comprehensive and longitudinal support that we offer our students. I know that there will be a lot of questions, so if you want to use the chat while I get through this, but I will first cover the proposed upgrades to the 2nd and the 3rd floor. And then I'll conclude with the proposed upgrades to the 4th floor. And then we'll open it up for suggestions, for things to keep in mind, and any recommendations and questions that the faculty have. So as many of you know, whenever there's any construction, right, the focus of budget often goes to the big infrastructure. And what is often left out is the little things at the end, like, let me have a study space in the hallways, because who thinks about that, right? And so one of the things that came up, I think, for students and faculty were saying, oh, we see students sitting down on the hallway waiting for office hours, or just sitting down on the floor waiting for their next class to start. And students and faculty, both of them, were asking for places where maybe they could sit and study while they wait. And so part of the proposed upgrades to the 2nd and 3rd floor includes having built-in countertops for students to do individual studying, as well as flexible study spaces. We're still ironing out exactly what that would look like. Right now, we're at the 30-foot view, right? We're not into the nitty-gritty details just yet, but we're thinking, okay, what are some of those flexible study spaces like? You know, what would that look like? And looking, perhaps visiting campuses where we can look at potential models. We do want to make sure that there's like a built-in screen right across. You can see it here, right across from the elevator, where that screen will project internship opportunities, flyers for STEM events, and just to keep students informed, similar to what is found, I think, on the 1st floor. We heard clearly from students and faculty that the Wi-Fi strength needed attention. So part of this upgrade also includes a stronger Wi-Fi and additional electrical connections. So that is That's floors, second and third floors would include these upgrades. Now, the biggest change comes, proposed changes comes in the fourth floor with what currently is called the Subir S Hub. This was started by Dr. Sanchez, and also with a little, I believe, I don't know too much of the history, but I believe it was part of some of the Title V grant funds. I don't know how COVID disrupted that programming, but part of Title III proposes to have this place that is exclusively to create a sense of belonging for STEM students. The idea behind this is to have computers, a copier and printer for students to be able to print out assignments or work in there while they wait for their next class. Increase Wi-Fi and electrical outlets as well. This STEM center is proposed to be in the S401B room. It's that corner room on top that many of you are aware of. And within that room, there will be integrated support services, including, this is our dream, right? I don't know, this is what, if it were an ideal world, this is what's going to happen. We're going to iron out whether this is possible, including whether we can have academic counseling happening in that space, having a counselor who is a STEM advocate, someone who we know as they're the champions for STEM, be in that center if possible, hiring peer mentors and tutors. So we're working and ironing out with the library and the tutoring center what that would look like. And also a place that will be focused on disseminating and supporting students during their applications to internships and research opportunities. So this is the place that hopefully all STEM students in your buildings would want to be at before, after class, or just to come in and feel like there's a place that belongs to them. And this is proposed to be staffed by staff that are part of this grant. So there are 2 positions that were specifically written to support in the staffing of this STEM center. One of them is a STEM support specialist and also a STEM engagement specialist. So those two part-time staff would come together to ensure that it's staffed at all times. There will also be student employees, like I mentioned, peer mentors and peer tutors as well, to help with providing services in that area, as well as myself being there, making myself available to support the staff and the students. And lastly, I think one of the biggest endeavors here is the makerspace that is proposed to be located in the, I think it's the East Wing, the area facing the high school. Well, there will be a storefront style wall, not wall, it's like a window. Maybe if we want to call it a storefront window, to create an area for a maker space where students can engage in collaborative and active learning. We will also make sure that, you know, that there's a faculty. So there is some funding in the grant to pay a faculty with an ESU to be around and to support students, and for them to have some hands-on activity with the equipment that is yet to be determined. So there was some equipment that was mentioned in the grant, but again, this grant was written a year or 2 years ago, and so the needs have changed. So I think one of the areas where we really need updated faculty input is how do we bring in equipment that will be aligned with either things that they're doing in your courses or something that you feel like they really need to know if they're going into particular careers. So the equipment is an area where we really welcome suggestions, and we want to be intentional. We don't want to buy a huge piece of equipment that 2 years from now will be obsolete. Technology changes rapidly one year to the next. You know, we all know iPhones every 6 months, it seems like, right? So we want to make sure we purchase something that will not collect dust after a year. So we definitely need your feedback with that. That I think that's a general overview again of the proposed changes. I know I saw activity in the chat, so I want to take a look at the chat, and if anybody has questions, please raise your hand and we can open it up for discussion. Unless Dean Leti or Dean Sanchez, is there something you would like to add? No. Oh,
I think no, just real quick. I think you said it, but I just want to confirm it that a lot of these decisions, this is why it's so important for us to work with all of you, you know, faculty and students, especially in the S building, because we wrote it in a way that it's specific in some components, but knowing that we didn't know what was going to happen, you know, in 2020, looking forward to 21, 22, where we were going to be with the pandemic. So as Liz mentioned, we need to make sure that we work with you to see what kind of things we need to in this spaces, right? And so we really want to work with you to understand how can we make these decisions on certain equipment, the way that places look. So, you know, following on Leti's comment, that was part of something that we wanted visually. Does it say STEM? Does it say, you know, what kind of positive messages do we want to have about the STEM identity? And we did talk about that as a separate identity from the students' cultural and other identities. Be proud of having the STEM identity. So even the name of these spaces, you know, again, we currently call it the S Hub or the S401 Hub. There was never a formal name that I learned when I arrived to City. And the same with this makerspace. If we want to name them something specific, we want that to be something that we work with students and faculty, so that it does feel like it's part of the community.
Lisa, I love your suggestion on the chat about scholarship support. I definitely think that could be one, informational, promoting scholarships that are available. That could be something that our engagement specialists, working also with financial aid, that if there are any STEM specific scholarships, that we promote that and that we offer some support. And yes, Dean Leti, these posters are actually intended to be printed. They're free. So yes, we can have some funds to print some and put that around the STEM Center. I welcome suggestions, comments, questions. I see a raised hand, Heather McRae.
Hi. So I did have kind of, I guess like an opinion about the 4th floor makerspace. So when the Subir 6 Center was, you know, first proposed and set up, you know, that was great, but then there wasn't staffing for it. And so it became because it's a door, right? It became a locked space that no longer was accessible to students. And I sort of have the same concern about the makerspace. Like that might be a great vibrant space while we have a bunch of money to staff it. But if we put a lock and a door on it, it becomes a empty space that never gets used once the money's gone. So I just wondered if there's a sort of plan for if we decide to wall off spaces or lock up spaces and lock up equipment, is there a plan for the future when there's no longer money to staff them, that they don't just become spaces that are like lost to us and lost to our students?
Yes. Yes, and so that is the biggest fear I think that people have around Title III, Title V HSI grants, is that these grants are supposed to be developmental, right? And they're supposed to help the campus build capacity to innovate, right? But not only, you know, you mentioned a particular instance, and I myself have seen a STEM center lights out and door closes as soon as a Title V grant is done. And that is why from year one, we have a meeting with the institutional research team, because in order for us to sustain the staffing to support these efforts, we will have to give a very compelling evidence-based report on the impact of these efforts. When this grant was given to the Department of Ed, the president signed off an institutional commitment to sustain the activities that were positively impacting students. What that will be up to us to document and to provide evidence. And so, yes, the plan is to sustain one or two of those positions. That is what was written in the grant, is that some of these positions would be sustained. So we're, depending on what the evidence shows, I think that we can make a case for which of those positions it should be. And I think this is where also we need the input from faculty as to documenting the impact, so that when we go to the president and the vice president, we can say, look at the metrics. If this position leaves, right, what's the impact on students and faculty? So we're preparing now to have that conversation in year 4 or year 3.
Yeah, and then just a follow-up to that, the 4th floor only contains biology classrooms. And so this space is really a space for biology students. People from chemistry and physical sciences don't travel to the 4th floor to study up there. This is where our students are congregating. It's where they're waiting for their classes. It's the biology student space. And my understanding was the makerspace was really proposed by physical sciences to house equipment that would be for physical science and potentially chemistry students. So, if this is not serving our biology students, why is it in the biology student space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'm learning a lot about the flow of students throughout the building, and that has been one thing that has been expressed, is the attraction that, well, I think that there are classes, like you said, that bring students into that 4th floor, right? And so our objective is to expand the flow and bring more students who would not traditionally come all the way to the 4th floor to come. I think that is the goal, is to expand beyond biology students, to invite all students to come up there, and we have to incentivize them to come to the 4th floor. So I share in that concern. I don't know if my colleagues here want to add anything else.
Yeah, no, it's a very valid question, Heather. I think, again, this is why we need to know what type of equipment we need to buy, right? So surveying students, surveying the faculty on those pieces, because some of the initial thoughts that we had almost 2 years ago, might have changed, right? Not just in relation to the pandemic, but maybe the way that you're even conducting classes, the pedagogy, as you know, right? Because of the pandemic. So I think there's a lot of pieces where we don't want it to be targeting one specific major or department, but how can we create a space that it is attractive for multiple, for students from multiple majors, right? So we definitely want to work with you, and whether it's in that space or another space, the funding is there. And yes, we listed ideas of what we wanted in the space, but those were just placeholders, right? If you look at the grant, there's nothing listed there. It's just an internal list that we wrote in terms of like what could potentially here, so that we can get some estimates of cost, so that ultimately we put that amount in the grant. Okay, and then there was another piece that you mentioned, but I'm forgetting right now, so I'll get back to it. But yeah, hopefully that helped.
Lisa, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I had some of that same concern about why is everything going to the 4th floor, 3rd floor, 2nd floor. because I represent the geosciences and we happen to be on the first floor. But we already have a workroom and I don't even know if anyone knows about it. It's S108 and it was designed as a student workroom. We could use help in just figuring out what to do with it and how to make it more appealing for a lot of students to be able to use, because it is called the student workroom, even on the original plans. So, you know, I have my club meetings in there and we do our Audubon Club projects there, but there might be other things that we can do with that space that would help the physical sciences, like my friends in astronomy or that, you know, something. But yeah, that kind of is down where their classes are.
If I may, thank you, Lisa. I think your comment / question reminded me of my other comment in relation to Heather. One thing that I've learned working with Title V and not Title III is that even though it's written in the grant, we need to have a strong communication with the Department of Education, and in the way that something that was written now almost 2 years ago is just not the reality that we need at this point. So as long as we communicate with the Department of Education, the intentionality behind some edits that we need to do to the proposed components. The objectives are harder to change, but the components of how we get to those objectives, those could change with the prior approval of our Department of Education program officer, right? So that's something that we don't have to lock ourselves into that 4th floor makerspace of 401 if we are having a conversation about how do we institutionalize it, right? So that was my point that I could remember earlier. Institutionalization of this grant should not start in year 4 and year 5. Institutionalization of this grant starts right now, right? And so we want to have this conversation all the time about how can we institutionalize these components? We need to look at, you know, personnel models, equipment, right? And all of these pieces out of the grant, we need to have that in mind in terms of every conversation. How will this be institutionalized to better support our students, right? And so if the decision as a college is to move certain items out of the makerspace, but to other spaces within the S building to really, you know, reach and recruit more students to STEM, and that's why we use STEM, we didn't say biology or chemistry or physics, right? Then we need to do that and communicate that to the Department of Education.
Thank you, Adan. And I see Ram, you raised your hand.
I think we lost him.
Oh, okay. Lisa and Heather, I just want to make sure that we answered your questions. We're good. Yeah. Erica, I see you on here. Do you have any comments, suggestions, input, anything we should be thinking about?
Not specifically, but I did see that you guys were asking for volunteers later on, and maybe I can volunteer for that. I think I'm like the only classified staff member in this meeting right now, so maybe I have some sort of input or expertise later on that can be helped in this work group.
Definitely, definitely. We will be looking for, this will be a committee that will require the representation of the different constituency groups. So we are looking for faculty, for classified professional students to sit on this Title III HSI workforce task force. There was another one for Title V. But this will be, I think, part of just wanting to bring in people who really support our students and that are STEM focused. So I think as long as you have that, the heart for supporting students and you bring in that STEM perspective, That's what we're looking for. I'm not closing it out, but I'm just saying, like, this is my invitation, my warm invitation to everyone on this call to be involved with the HSI task force. I do know that we're all sitting on many committees, that we're on back-to-back meetings, that we're having to be in person and virtual. So I want to just acknowledge that this is an additional committee to consider, but also know that it will have great impact and that we need your input. We need faculty who are there and who know the needs to inform the implementation of this grant. Please consider it. I will be sending out a formal invitation with detailed explanations of what would be expected. So please look out for that. Anything else? Any other burning questions, comments?
I think, Adan, we have talked about this a little bit, but any collaboration we can have with the SDSU Pathways Title III as well, I think would be very valuable, including the fact that with any luck, starting in fall, we're going to be offering that entering research methods class is a requirement for our SDSU Pathways students, but that is something that we could potentially consider opening up to a broader audience if that would serve our students in our own, City College Title III grant, the students that are doing the Bridges programs. So things like that, I think, would be very high quality collaborations that could serve both grants with contributed efforts.
Definitely. I mean, I think we're very, as Liz mentioned, it was a competitive competition, right? But we're lucky enough that we have 3 of these grants in San Diego, 2 of them within our district. So Mesa College and San Diego City College, we each got 1, and San Diego Mesa with the partnership that you created, so we're linked to that one as well, right? So kudos to the district for being connected to these 3 grants, 2 directly and 1 through you, in San Diego State. So I think that's a huge, district-wide kind of success in terms of getting these grants accepted by the Department of Education, but it also speaks on the need to better support our students, right? So we made enough of a case to say our students need this support, right? So yes, I mean, Leti, when I first joined San Diego City College as a Title V activity director, Leti invited me to this kind of regional Title V directors meeting. And because of the pandemic, because of role changes, it kind of went a little bit on sabbatical, but I think it's time to bring that group back, and include, representatives from San Diego State and Mesa College, and it can be more of a conversation around these kind of grants, so including Title V and Title IIIs, because again, we're targeting very similar populations, just with a little bit of the STEM piece for the Title III. So I think that would be a great component, to move forward with, so that we can be on the same page of how do we support our students, how do we recruit our students, and not overwhelm our students with so many options. And well, this option gives me this option gives me that. We need to make it easier for the students to understand what are the different options that they have, and how can we connect with our local high schools as well in the way that we recruit in a very intentional way, rather than individualistic efforts that are going to, tax our limited staff.
Thank you, Heather, for that invitation. I will certainly be reaching out. Great. And I would be remiss if I don't acknowledge Lisa Will. Thank you for coming to what you've been able to come in terms of doing some walkthroughs with us. I know it's additional work for you, but I really appreciate your learned skills in that area. So thank you.
I was glad to be helpful about the building. I know a little bit too much about it at this point, so thank you.